Hello, everyone. The lunch is probably settling in at this point, so I'll try and stay upbeat for all of you. First, thanks to Salesforce and Dreamforce and Quotable for having me here today. I'm going to go through, let me give you a little bit of context for those of you who've never heard of me or come across anything that I've produced. I'm going to date myself here for a minute. Back in 1999, I got my very first sales job, and I was selling software out of a box, if you guys can imagine those days. And I had a very love-hate relationship with marketing. It was more hate than love. I hated what they were doing. They were buying lists. They were dumping crap into a CRM and basically just telling my sales manager I had to call on people. I loved them because they were really nice people, and we would go out drinking afterwards and have a really great time. But at the end of the day, they weren't actually producing anything for me. So I had to find ways, in order to be successful, to generate my own pipeline. And so how do most salespeople do that these days? Or even back then? They would go hunting. And most salespeople are responsible for generating a very large percentage of their own pipeline. I just felt that there had to be a more effective way of doing this. So in 2005, I signed up for LinkedIn. It opened up a whole new world to me. I was now able to find these buyers in an environment within the context of a professional conversation. In 2007, I signed up for Twitter. And that's when my entire world unfolded. I was now able to see the buyer from a professional context, where they'd worked, gone to school, their current title, how they've grown in their professional lives, and the personal context that most of them were sharing on Twitter, like what they ate for lunch that day. What I was able to do when I was able to put those two things together was build a process to have very relevant conversations with these decision makers. Because as an inside sales rep, I did not have the luxury of going on site. I did not get to go into an office and see pictures on a desk or see photos on the wall of their family. But social media allowed me to see all of this. That then led me into crossing over to what I call the dark side of marketing and taking my very first inbound marketing role at a company some of you are familiar with called Inside View. And what they allowed me to do was build this idea of what social selling was. And it turned out to be the best career decision I had ever made, moving from sales into marketing. We created something called Social Selling University, which was my way of being able to educate an entire ecosystem of salespeople how to leverage social media. What it also allowed me to do was get on the radar of some very big companies, one of which was LinkedIn, who recruited me into their business. And I built the social strategy and content strategy around their Sales Navigator product. That then led me into my most recent position that I had with LinkedIn before leaving, which I was the head of social media for LinkedIn. Now, why do I tell you all of this? I tell you all of this because there is a fundamental shift happening in businesses across the world. On one side, you have marketers, and they are generating the leads. They are doing things to build pipeline, or at least try and fill the bucket of inquiries and leads and MQLs within the system. Then on the other side of the scale, you have salespeople who are very much one-to-one conversations. They're building their pipeline by having very close conversations with a buyer or a series of buyers. What I was able to find, and what I've been able to map out across companies, is the social media aspect. What does that handoff look like? What is marketing doing within social, and how does that translate into the sales ecosystem? What I've learned over the past, say, 5-6 years of doing this professionally is that marketers need to start thinking like salespeople, and salespeople need to start thinking like marketers. There's a term that gets thrown around, smarketing, or mini marketers. Salespeople, in order to generate their own pipeline, to fill their own buckets of buyers, need to find out how to market their businesses better. And marketers need to be held accountable to a revenue number. When that happens, marketers will actually start paying attention to the stuff that they're putting out there. Social selling is not a replacement for the phone or for email. You will always use the phone. You will always be sending emails. All I'm saying and advocating for is that social media needs to be part of that ecosystem. It's been talked about, if you've been sitting in this room all day, like as I have, you've heard other people discuss the idea that there needs to be layers of communication and cadences built on how you're communicating with these buyers. Some of it will always involve the phone. I do believe cold calling is dead in the very traditional sense. But even cold calling as it's described as now isn't really cold calling, because at least now we have data and we have information to leverage within those phone calls. You will always use emails. Until some new form of communication comes across, email is always going to be important. But social selling is one of those aspects that as a business, if you're going to get ahead, if you're going to continue to grow and be successful, you have to be aware of and be implementing within your organization. This is some research that was done by the IDC, probably about a year and a half ago. And what they found was that social buyers who leverage social media in the buying experience, spend 84% more than people who don't. We had a misconception that people were only going to social media to find the deal, to find the discount. That may be true on a B2C level when you're trying to buy a printer or a pair of shoes or the new drapes for your living room. In a B2B context, it's the exact opposite. Buyers are willing to spend more money if they're buying the right product or the right service for their company. What was also very interesting is that these social buyers, people who are leveraging social in that buying process, are spending money more often. So they're spending more money and they're buying things more often. What's not to like about that? As a business, leveraging information like this, you should be telling all of your salespeople to start becoming active on social media. Because this is where your buyers are spending time and looking for the right product or service to fill a need. You hire the right people, you buy the right tools. We've heard a lot about tools. You need a CRM, you need a sales navigator license, you need some type of content curation mechanisms. But people and technology is only part of that process. And the key word there is process. You need a methodology to fill within this. And this is where 90% of the companies I come across fail. We hired the best talent out there. We screened people and hired the best people. We gave them all the best tools that all these analysts and all these other researchers are saying that you need to buy. Where they failed was that they didn't build a process around it. The 30 minutes or hour and a half of training they get on some new tool they bring in is not enough. You need to bake it into their process so that they actually understand how these tools are going to impact their pipeline. So within a social selling methodology, you want to identify the buyers, you want to connect with those buyers, engage them, and then add value. If you do these things, you're going to bring in more revenue. First thing you need to do is identify all of these buyers. And how are you going to do that? There's dozens of tools out there. There's Sales Navigator, there's these lead scoring mechanisms, these other ways of finding these buyers. And then you have to connect with them. And that could be from everything from the phone call, but most people don't answer the phone to people they don't know, to leveraging social media. How are you connecting, socially surrounding these individuals? And then how are you engaging with them? Because just because you know who they are and just because you follow them on Twitter or connect with them on LinkedIn isn't going to actually bring in any money. You have to find a way to engage them. You have to find ways to share information, add value. Time and time again, you want to be a resource for those buyers, those decision makers. Social selling leaders, and Jamie Shanks, if you were in the room when Jamie gave his talk, he talked about the social selling index. Social selling leaders are anyone with a social selling index score over 70. Salespeople over an SSI score of 70 generate more opportunities. And we see it time and time and time again. When I go into companies now, one of the very first questions I ask is, let's look at the SSI scores across your company. Because it gives me a very clean understanding, a benchmark, if you will, of where I need to focus my energy to get them to actually be performing better. They also exceed quota. Not meet it, they're not hitting their numbers, they're exceeding their numbers. This is across all industries. This is not just technology. Leveraging social media, being and implementing social selling practices within your sales organization with the help of marketing, you're going to make more money. And your salespeople are going to be really happy when they're exceeding their quotas. The next part of the methodology is around content. And this is where marketing needs to kind of pull out their pants and actually start doing some stuff. This is one of my major issues when I was in sales with the marketing team that I've always tried to adopt when I go into a new sales team. Content is the fuel for social selling. Recent research has said that the winning vendor for business had the best content. Over 65% of the buyers said that the winning vendor's content had an immediate impact on them making the buying decision. Your company needs to start thinking like a publisher and start producing the content that your buyers need to see to move them through the sales funnel. It needs to be educational. You can curate it from other sources. There's stuff that you're going to own, and there's going to be stuff specifically designed for lead generation. In the vein of always trying to add value, not everything you produce should be lead generation. It's going to hurt you in the long run. You need to be able to add value and become a resource for your customers, for your buyers, in a way that isn't always asking them to fill out a form. This is why blogs do so well for most businesses. So you need blogs, you need original research if you can produce it, or you can outsource that with any of these other analyst firms to actually produce the research for you. There's PR, and then there's just entertainment, just fun stuff to put out there to engage that audience. The second part about the methodology is around visibility creates opportunity. And I'm going to say this at least 2 more times because this is extremely important. Visibility creates opportunity. As a quota-carrying sales rep on my own, the only way I was able to become successful was increasing my visibility. I had to find ways to be seen by every potential buyer that could buy my product. In marketing, it's the exact same philosophy. They have to be visible in order for people to actually come to your business. Salespeople need to start thinking with that mindset. Visibility creates opportunity. You have to build a bonfire for all of your buyers to surround. You have to become the ultimate resource so that they may not be ready to buy today or next quarter or the quarter after that, but if you're producing content and becoming a resource and adding value to that buyer, when they are ready to buy, you are the first person they're going to call because you've been helping them along this entire journey for however long it's taken them. You want to leverage tools like LinkedIn. In the context of B2B sales, LinkedIn is the social network you want to be playing in. That's where everybody is. You need to be using Twitter. You need to be hyperactive on a platform like Twitter. People use Twitter like a search engine. You need to be pushing out content and becoming a value, adding value into the ecosystem with the keywords. Again, a lot of this stuff needs to come from the marketing team so that when people are on Twitter and actually running a search to find something, your name, your company, your content is what's being found. And I leave the other in there because every single industry has a very niche network that your customers are playing in. And you, professionals, should all know where those are. And if you don't know, you should go looking, or you should demand that your head of marketing tells you where they are. Because this is where the decisions are actually getting made. Before they ever call you, before they ever go to your website and download something, they're spending time in these networks having all these little conversations about what should we look at, what are you using, I have this pain point, oh, so do I, well, what do you use? All these things are happening before they ever are interested in talking to somebody at your company. The second thing I want to make sure I impress upon all of you is the idea of resume to reputation. Most of us create our LinkedIn profiles with the idea that we want to build our online resume. Because initially, that's all it was. You put in your job history, you put in your work experience, where you went to school, and that's all it was. The problem is that as a buyer, I am not going to somebody's LinkedIn profile and wanting to see how great of a salesperson they are. I just don't care. I don't care if they went to President's Club 7 years in a row. It doesn't matter. I want to know how you as a sales professional is going to impact my life and my business. You have to make your profile customer facing, just like any other website. You have to go from resume to building your reputation off of these digital properties. Because where else can you turn a Rolodex, if any of you guys remember Rolodexes, your contacts, into a network that generates revenue? Social media allows you to do this, and it is growing faster and faster. Every year we see the stats, and they're continuing to climb year over year. Social media is having a bigger impact on how salespeople engage with buyers and how buyers are looking for product. Common obstacles. Oh, these are cute. They changed the images. The common obstacles that I find when I talk to a company about what resume to reputation looks like is they have horrible profiles. No picture, bad picture, group picture in some cases for their profile. I had one guy who was doing keg stands. He created this thing when he was in college. They have no information. They're not adding any value through their profile. It looks like a resume. Their privacy settings are off. I challenge every single one of you to go into LinkedIn today and look at your privacy settings and see if you're actually sharing content with an extended network. Most people create their LinkedIn profile with the Facebook mindset. And what do I mean by that? Because Facebook was first, everybody was on Facebook before they joined LinkedIn, for the most part. When you created your LinkedIn profile, you locked it all down because you weren't sure about this whole social media thing and how much information you wanted out there. So when you created it, you probably said, I don't want to share anything outside of my close group of friends. If you are a sales or marketing professional and that's how you view social media and social networking, you're wrong. You need your voice to be heard far and wide. You need to open this up to the entire social graph so that as you're sharing information, everybody is now able to see it and not just this closed group of people. And then obviously, there's no activity. They're not actually sharing anything. You need to be able to be active. Another key component of social selling is employee advocacy. And there's a handful of tools that you could use. But the reality is, as professionals, as a business, as a leader within your organization, you should be encouraging and empowering your sales team, your entire company, to be advocates on social media. What LinkedIn had found when they looked at company pages to all the employees of that company was that the employees had 10 times the reach of the company. Let that sink in for a minute. As a brand, you're pushing out messages and hoping people see it and engage with you, and you're probably actually getting some decent engagement. But your employees can touch so much more of that graph. And your salespeople should, if they have built a good strategy, are connecting with all of these buyers, either pre-decision-making process or after decision-making process. But they're connecting with your target market. Marketing thinks they have the right targeting in place. Your sales team knows the targeting. They are connecting with the right people. So you need to find ways to produce content that they can leverage to get into this larger social graph. So we talked about the methodology. We talked about the importance of training, and I cannot stress this enough. You need to build a process, and you need to have reinforcement, and it's not an hour or 2 hours of some tool. It is ongoing, weekly, monthly, quarterly, with check-ins, with assessments attached to it, of how are you measuring the impact of social media. Jamie brought it up before. The whole idea that you have something in your CRM, Salesforce, the customization of this is amazing. Add in these fields. Send them an email. sent them a message on Twitter, connected with them on either of these platforms, log this activity, and then you can measure it. And when you're able to measure it, you're gonna see that it is actually having an impact on deal size, length of the sales cycle, and how far and deep you're getting in with these accounts. How many of you are familiar with ABM? I'm just gonna throw out the initials to see if anybody gets it. All right, so ABM is account-based marketing. And the concept is that you're not going after wide-reaching people, groups of people, you're targeting top 25, 100, 150 accounts, whatever it is, and trying to go as deep as possible. Social selling marries into that perfectly. Because if you're trying to get into the Ciscos of the world, the Salesforces of the world, finding ways to connect with those decision makers on social media is just as easy as the marketing team saying, I'm only gonna show display ads or retargeting or these types of things to those buyers. Your sales team can almost mirror the things that marketing is doing within the social landscape. And it becomes a lot more effective when trying to get the business. And now I'm gonna open it up for some Q&A. And I can't get off the stage, they said in the back, until at least I have one question. Someone's brave. There we go. We got two. Thank you. Yes. First.
You mentioned about people locking down. Sorry. How you doing? You mentioned about people locking down their LinkedIn profiles, which is absolutely right. They need to access the whole social graph, but the whole network that's out there. Would you also agree that a lot of people unknowingly have all of their own contacts visible? And also, and LinkedIn encourages this, they have a tendency to have their privacy settings set in such a way that if they change a word in the title of their job, or if they update lots of different things, it pops into the feed and pollutes the feed. So there's two sides to that.
There are two sides.
And would you agree that LinkedIn, at times, is overzealous in promoting that?
So I don't work there anymore, so I guess I can talk bad about their product. No, their product is great. You have to learn the context, and you have to understand the nuances of each platform. When you're updating your profile, there's a little toggle switch that says broadcast, don't broadcast. So if you need to make minor edits, I toggle it off. It takes an extra step, but it is a lot better than polluting the feed. That being said, some of you, and I'm not gonna point anybody out, you're not doing anything on LinkedIn anyway. So the fact that you change a capitalization in your title is gonna do you more good than harm. Because all of a sudden your entire network's gonna say, oh, this guy's alive. He's actually doing something, right? So it's probably not a bad thing. But you're right, you have to understand the nuances, you have to understand the platforms. But that doesn't absolve you from the idea that you need to be sharing on the network. And you need to have your privacy settings opened up to the social graph.
Some of your more experienced salespeople that have been selling for 15, 20 years, how do you get them to shift and change and get more into social as part of their world? How do I get people to shift that have been doing this for 15, 20 years? Frankly, you know what I tell them? You figure this out or you're not gonna have a job in 5 years. And I'm actually I believe that. If they do not figure out how to do this, they're not gonna have a job. Because people are not picking up their phones as much. People are not looking at all of their emails as much. They're deleting 90% of it unless they recognize who that person is or that phone number. People are too busy to go into these traditional sales models where you're trying to like berate them with, not berate them, but barrage them. Sometimes you berate them. Emails, phone calls, phone calls. You have to find ways to break through those barriers. And that's where I have found, and many other people have found, that social media actually becomes a level set and allows you to actually have these conversations on a much more palatable level. That's the half-ass answer. The other half of that is you have to train them. I do believe you can teach, and don't get offended by this, you can teach old dogs new tricks. I believe that most salespeople who are professionals, they learned how to become professional at what they do. And they want to continue to be successful. And in order for them to do that, you have to give them the training.
You have to tell them how to do this the right way and not just say, here's a tool, go run off with it, because they'll never figure it out. Because it's too hard for them. It's almost like opening up like a whole can of worms on like, well, do I do this right? Do I not do that right? Like they know what works for them or has been working for them, but they have no idea how to do most of the social networking. You have to be able to actually walk them through it, show them the success paths. I can't remember if it was Jamie or John Barrows earlier was talking about actually creating these little case studies internally and showing them to the rest of the company and saying, this is how stuff is done, and this is how fast these things are moving. Do I have time for one more question before you kick me off stage? Oh, okay.
Hi, this is great insight. Thank you for that. Question I have is I was recently reading that as many as 1 in 4 LinkedIn visitors could be there simply because they're in the market for switching jobs.
Sorry, there's an echo. Hold on. Say it again.
As many as 1 in 4 LinkedIn visitors could be visiting because they're getting ready to make a job switch. So I'm just curious to understand, what have been your experiences in terms of LinkedIn becoming that site for social media content engagement that's relevant to my career endeavors or any user's career endeavors?
So are you saying that people are trying to shift careers, and how does that matter?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the traffic, at least historically, has been that people have gone there because they're looking to change jobs, right?
So, yes.
So you see where I'm going?
But I would argue, just note, because I used to be in, so to speak, most of the activity on LinkedIn is recruiting. There are people who are switching jobs, and recruiters use the platform as their biggest business line. The next one is salespeople. And it's the decision makers, directors and above, that are leveraging LinkedIn to find the companies and the individuals they need to do business with. So yes, you use the platform to find a new job. But if you listen to any HR person, they are not going to somebody's LinkedIn profile to find out if they had been in President's Club 7 years in a row. An HR professional is more impressed by going to a profile and saying, oh my gosh, this guy is legit. He has helped out companies. He's providing value. This is somebody I want to bring into my company or into my client to present as a potential candidate. If your profile says, I've crushed my quota, I'm in President's Club, I'm great, and has a picture of you doing keg stands, yeah, you're not going to win that, right? You have to have a professional profile. And in my experience, having a customer-facing profile is the best way to go about that. So either way, it's a win-win if you go from resume to reputation. Yeah, one more. I'll take questions all day until they kick me out of here.
Hey there. I'm in digital marketing, and I was wondering what your recommendations are to best partner with sales, whether it's we manage our broader social media presence and all the email and website. And
I'm going to flip that around. How are you already doing it?
Well, right now we do support inside sales with a lot of the one-to-one, but our outside sales reps are more kind of on their own because they like to do things their way.
Because they're cowboys. They want to feel like they're doing it.
But I feel like inside sales we have a really good relationship with, and then it's how do we get those outside sales reps who are the ones closing to really bring them in.
So the field reps are using social media.
Yeah.
I've never met a field rep who doesn't, before they walk into an office or a meeting, pull out their iPad, their iPhone, and start scrolling through everybody that they're about to meet with. And if they're not, they probably shouldn't be out in the field. But it's just a best practice. So as a digital marketer, what can you provide value to them that can go on their LinkedIn profiles? Because I guarantee you, they're walking into the office on their phones looking at, VP of X and Director of Y that they're going to be meeting with. The VP of X and Director of Y are also looking at him to say, who is this guy and I got a meeting with in 10 minutes, and they're flipping through it, and they look at that profile like, oh, geez, look at that. Oh, that's an interesting slide deck. Oh, that's an interesting, there's value to be added. If you're able to provide, based on knowing the buying journey, if you're able to provide them the content that is going to help them move that through, the people in the field are going to be in love with you. Because that's one thing out in the field that you just typically don't have, because you're having to look for all of it because you might be in a different state in most cases, right? So find ways to build that repository, to build some place where these field reps can go in and say, I'm meeting with a brand new buyer in this industry, these are the potential pain points, or maybe they already know it, and here's the 4 things I need. Or this is my second meeting with them, we're about to put together a proposal, they brought up these few objections, here's the content I need. As a digital marketer, you should be helping them find this stuff as fast as possible. I was actually, were any of you in the CEB session a couple hours ago? You know, they called it the easy meter. The EASA meter? I can't remember how you pronounced it. But you want to make it as easy as possible for these people in the field to get access to the content that's going to make them successful. All right, that's all I have time for because Jill's about to come up. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your Dreamforce.